Hi, my name is Whitney Sponsel, and this presentation is for the Masters of Arts in Education through Baker University. The area of concentration I chose was curriculum and instruction. I chose curriculum and instruction as my focus because teaching and learning is something that I have always had a passion for, and I wanted to learn more about how to make my teaching better. I feel that there's always room for improvement, and I wanted to improve on my teaching skills and find strategies that I could use in my own classroom to enhance my students' engagement and learning. My concentration courses taken through Baker University are EDU 5254, Teacher as Counselor, EDU 5313, Enhancing Instruction with Technology, EDU 5373, Balanced Literacy, Reading and Writing Instruction, EDU 5031, Enhancing Meaningful Learning. I also had a transfer credit from Newman University. I had 3 credit hours transfer, and this was from a couple of years back when I was working on my ESOL endorsement. The first class I'm going to take a look at is EDU 5254, Teacher as Counselor. The learning in EDU 5254 was a lot about developing kind of those teacher-counselor skills. In the classroom, there can be a lot of emotional issues, sometimes behavioral issues that can come up, and having the tools and strategies to address those problems is very helpful. One of these assignments I also conducted was based on a research topic of oppositional defiance disorder. We also spent time learning about breathing techniques, and I also learned about how to develop helping skills. And developing the helping skills was significantly important to me as well, because as a teacher, knowing how to properly help your students is really significant. Knowing how to listen to my students, showing them that I'm listening, and knowing how to guide them and help them is something that I really want to work on and continue to get better at, just because I work in a high poverty area and a lot of my students come to me with home issues, or maybe they're having issues with another student, and I want to make sure that I can help them as the best of my ability. The class helped to give me a lot of foundational skills that I needed as a teacher. I wanted to make sure that my students felt safe and that they know that they can come to an emotionally stable place to learn, and that when they get to school, they are engaged and ready for their learning activities. Something that I will be bringing into my practice, I started last school year and I want to continue into this school year, is just really being able to address problems that my students may be facing. I want to make sure that they know that I am listening to them and that I hear them and trying to help them develop problem-solving skills and guide them in that direction. I also enjoyed learning about self-regulating strategies. One of the self-regulating strategies is the smell the flower, blow out the candle breathing technique. And I have my students take about 5 deep breaths in through their nose like they're smelling a flower, and then blow out like they're blowing out a candle. And when I notice my students getting a little rambunctious or silly, we stop and we take those big deep breaths to get regulated and ready to get back into learning. My next class was EDU 5313, Enhancing Instruction with Technology. And this class was a lot of fun because I got to look at and learn about so many different technology resources, and I just felt like a little bit overwhelmed at first with so many resources, but as I got more into the class and started researching more, I found a lot that I really enjoyed learning about and using. One of my favorites was Edpuzzle. I also learned about Padlet, which allows students to collaborate with other students online, and I was also able to learn how to make editable PDF documents. I utilized Edpuzzle last school year for the first time, and it was amazing, and I loved how engaged my students were with this activity. I used it during both science and math. For science, it was during a time where we were learning about animal senses. I was able to find a video that was related to our standard. It asked questions, and the video, the Edpuzzle website causes the video to stop, and the students have to answer the question. And it grades it quickly and sends it back to me. The students also get that immediate feedback about how they did. And I can also see how my students are doing very quickly as well. During math, I was able to integrate lessons about fractions, and fractions can be a little bit tricky, so having another way to show students about fractions or help them to learn about fractions is great for helping them demonstrate their understanding and have a deep level of understanding of what fractions are and how to represent them. I do teach 4th grade, so by the time students come to me, they have a pretty good foundational understanding of technology in the classroom, which makes it easy for us to jump in pretty quickly with technology. I go over expectations, of course, and how to address the assignments and where to find the assignments, but once they get into it, they're pretty quick about understanding what to do and where to go. My 3rd class is EDU 53, Balanced Literacy, Reading, and Writing Instruction. During this course, I learned some really great strategies that I can utilize during my reading and writing time. Some of those strategies were vocabulary strategies such as the Frayer model. We also took a look at quick writes and interactive read alouds. Those are 2 of my favorite activities for reading and writing time, and I noticed that my students were extremely engaged when we did those activities. For the quick writes, what I did was start the timer for about 3 minutes, and I would give my students a quick prompt, and they would spend 3 minutes writing, and the purpose was to help to build up their stamina. A lot of times my students come to me and they really struggle with getting started and figuring out what to write or how to write, or they're just not sure. So using the quick writes where it's just a short period of time where they're writing, it's not so overwhelming for them. And I start with something that they're familiar with and something that they can easily write about. And then we up the rigor by adding more time, but also adding a more complex topic where they are reflecting on their learning. And I also try to make sure that I'm bringing quick writes into things other than just reading and writing. I want to bring it into math and science. And in math, for example, a quick write may be something like reflecting on their favorite strategy to use for regrouping. Or for science, maybe they want to write about a favorite animal and maybe what types of characteristics that animal has if we're doing a research on animals or something similar to that. The Frayer model is another good one to help dive deep into that vocabulary understanding. Overall, there were many great activities that I've learned, and I was able to implement them last year, some of them, and then I'm looking forward to implementing even more with the upcoming school year. My last course that I'll be talking about is EDU 5031, Enhancing Meaningful Learning. Enhancing meaningful learning really helped to address the differentiation needs for all learners in my classroom. Sometimes it can be overwhelming to differentiate for everybody and meet everyone's needs. And through this class, I was able to learn several different strategies that just make it feel so much more realistic for me to differentiate in my classroom. For the application piece, some of the things that I used were looking at learning styles when utilizing stations or differentiation practices. I want to implement more into my classroom in the upcoming school year, and some of the activities I plan to use will be looking at stations. I want to create stations based on my students' learning styles. One example of that would be during math. At the beginning of the school year, we typically start with place value. We review place value and looking at our regrouping strategies. So I plan to have a station that will consist of place value blocks that students can use to solve the addition or subtraction problem. Another station will be working with the teacher using visuals and drawing place value chips to represent regrouping. And the last station is where students will work with a partner to collaborate on solving their math problems. They can also, if they're both working on the same math problem, they can solve it independently and then get together and check their answers to see if they made a mistake or how they did and reflect on that. I plan to use choice boards as well next school year, and this would primarily be for students who are early finishers. If students are early finishers, they can go and refer to the choice board and they can select an activity from that. Some examples of choice board activities that I would give my students may be something like looking at figurative language during ELA time. If a student is done early, they can spend some time listening or reading stories and practicing finding or coming up with their own similes or metaphors for a story or the characters in a story. They could even have an option of free writing. Maybe they like to write their own stories or even do a novel study. And I do feel like choice boards help to increase student engagement because students have more buy-in and letting them, feeling like that they pick the activity. They feel empowered to make some of their educational choices, and they're more likely to participate in something that they enjoy. Overall, the learning that I acquired during my concentration courses helped me to further develop my research-based practices that I can use in my own classroom. I'm really happy and excited about the new strategies that I have and applying them to my class in the upcoming school year. The new strategies I learned helped me to bring more fun into the classroom while still making sure that I was focused on my state standards and making sure that I'm keeping the goal of the learning at the forefront of our priorities when we're integrating fun into the classroom. I feel like I've been able to get a great start with incorporating new technology resources as well. The differentiation strategies, I'm excited to try them out as well. I plan to start smaller as recommended in my course and then building up into more differentiation techniques as I progress throughout the year. Throughout the courses, I learned a lot and I feel prepared and excited to take on my 11th year of teaching. My references page includes the book, The Differentiated Classroom, Responding to the Needs of All Learners. I will also include my presentation link in the PowerPoint.